Right off the top, stocks tumbling now as Wall Street braces for the impact of tariffs ordered by President Trump. But the president just put a pause on potential trade war with Mexico after signing an executive order to tariff 3 of America's largest trading partners, Canada, Mexico, and China. And just moments ago, the Mexican president said that she has reached an agreement with Trump to avoid tariffs for 1 month. Trump also says he spoke with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau this morning. The two are scheduled to talk later again this afternoon. China already threatened a lawsuit with the World Trade Organization for, quote, wrongful practices of the U.S. They have yet to say if they will be rolling back that lawsuit. Now, the president said the tariffs are about immigration and drugs, and he blames all 3 countries for not doing enough to stop fentanyl from entering the U.S. Trump also pointed the finger at Mexico and Canada for allowing migrants over the border, and he acknowledged the impact these tariffs would have on Americans yesterday. Take a listen.
We may have short-term a little pain, and people understand that, but long-term, the United States has been ripped off by virtually every country in the world. We have deficits with almost every country, not every country, but almost. And we're going to change it. It's been unfair. That's why we owe $36 trillion. We have deficits with everybody. We help everybody. We've been helping everybody for years. And to be honest, I don't think they appreciate it.
CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes joins us now with more. Nancy, thank you for being with us. What more can you tell us about these conversations this morning?
Well, they appear to be bearing fruit, Liz. Let's just break down the post that President Trump himself put up a short time ago in which he said that he had spoken to the president of Mexico. He said it was a very friendly conversation, and she had agreed to immediately supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border separating Mexico and the United States. He further went on to say that these soldiers are going to be specifically designated to stop the flow of fentanyl, and in exchange for those 10,000 soldiers, he has agreed to halt the tariffs on Mexico only, not Canada, not China, but only Mexico, that were supposed to go into effect tomorrow for 1 month while they continue negotiations. And so he's heralding this as a deal that he has reached with one of the countries. We also know that he has spoken with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada this morning, slated to speak to him again this afternoon. So we'll see if those conversations are headed down a similar track where he is looking to extract some kind of promise in exchange for at least temporarily lifting the tariffs that he announced just this weekend.
And meanwhile, Nancy, Trump continues to push for control of the Panama Canal. Take a listen to what some of he had to say.
I don't think troops will be necessary in Panama. What Panama has done is terrible for national security for this part of the world. It was the most expensive project ever built by this country, if you take it forward. The most expensive project ever built. We lost 38,000. And what happens? China owns it all of a sudden? It's not going to happen. We're not going to let that happen. We have national security concerns, and they wouldn't let it happen either.
Now, this is all coming as Secretary of State Marco Rubio is wrapping up his time in Panama as part of his first international trip in this new role. What was Rubio's message to the Panamanian president, and where does he head next?
His message, Liz, was that Panama needs to do more to reduce Chinese influence in and around the Panama Canal. The Panamanians have argued that the Chinese don't run the canal. They certainly have some infrastructure projects around the canal, but they argue that they are still in charge. Nevertheless, it does sound like the meetings were productive, and Rubio heads now to El Salvador, where he is going to make the case that officials there need to accept more deported foreign nationals from countries that don't accept U.S. deportation flights. So as deportation flights ramp up, one of the challenges is that the U.S. wants to send people back to countries that won't accept those flights. They need to go somewhere. And so Rubio is going to be leaning on the El Salvadorians to try to take some of those deported individuals.
And speaking on immigration, Nancy, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is visiting the southern border for his first trip since he was confirmed. What role does he play in Trump's mass deportation plan?
Well, President Trump and those around him are looking for a major influx in the military presence at the U.S. border. They believe that would be one way to stem the flow, not just of fentanyl, but of migrants themselves crossing the border illegally. Traditionally, members of the military, when they are at the border, they don't play an enforcement role. They're not out there with their military weapons pointing them at individuals as they cross the border. They're usually there in a supporting role. But the White House would like to beef up that supporting role. In fact, there's even been discussion of sending as many as 10,000 troops to the U.S. border, which would be really significant. And so, doing anything like that would require the complete buy-in and participation of the new Secretary of Defense.
Also happening now, and this one is sending shockwaves through Washington, Nancy. Another federal judge hears challenges to the Trump administration's memo that put a freeze on federal funding assistance. Trump's team already rescinded part of that freeze. Can you walk us through what challenges remain in this?
Sure. I mean, they did freeze the freeze, but they could always unfreeze the freeze. In fact, they have said that this is only temporary, that they are reworking the instructions now that there are courts involved, but they still very much would like to place a freeze on federal spending in particular that conflicts with some of President Trump's executive orders having to do with transgender individuals, having to do with migrants who are in this country illegally and the like. And so, they are working through some of these legal challenges that have popped up. But make no mistake, they are, as you can read into some of the actions we saw this weekend by Elon Musk and his operation called Doge, they are looking to cut federal spending any way they can.
Nancy Cordes live for us from the White House. Thank you so much for that reporting, Nancy.